Hello, everyone. Hope you're well. Welcome back to the Sanderson Show. In this episode, going to be speaking about the diamond that is the man that they call Dustin Poirier, who unfortunately didn't capture gold in his last efforts. However, even though many speculated he would retire, and even he hinted at the same thing after his loss, he seems to have got that itch back. He seems to have one more in him, or uno mas, as he tweeted not too long ago. So in this episode, I'm going to break down 4 potential opponents for the one, the only Dustin Poirier. Sit back, relax, smash that like button, switch on notifications, and subscribe. This is the Sanderson Show. Hello, everyone. So on the road to 2,000 subscribers. So please do make sure you hit that subscribe button if you haven't. And the Diamond Poirier, one more match it seems he has in him. And if I'm being selfish, I'm happy. I understood if he wanted to retire. He's had 3 title opportunities, one against Khabib, one against Charles Oliveira, and most recently against Islam Makhachev. All losses, all submission losses. But he's been extremely unlucky. I mean, if you're going to be in any 3 title fights, they're probably the 3 worst title fights to have. Khabib, widely considered as the lightweight GOAT, in many of people's opinions, the actual GOAT of MMA. Charles Oliveira got the most submissions in UFC history, and Islam Makhachev seems to be the heir to the throne of Khabib and on his way to becoming the lightweight GOAT himself. Dustin Poirier, however, is a legend, and it's always hard to see legends walk away. But with him, it would have been slightly different because he seems to still be in his prime. I know he lost to Islam Makhachev, but many would argue that was probably one of the best versions we've seen of Dustin Poirier. And the fight before that, he knocked out an up-and-coming rising star in Benoit Saint-Denis. Dustin Poirier still has more left in the tank, if you ask me. So, without any further ado, I'm going to go through the 4 individuals I believe would be a great fight for Dustin Poirier. Number 1, Justin Gaethje. Now, these two have fought twice. Dustin Poirier beat him the first time, getting a knockout. And in the second fight, Dustin Poirier is winning and then wasn't when he got caught with a high kick and then a people's elbow by Herb Dean. Dustin Poirier versus Justin Gaethje was for the BMF belt, a belt that Gaethje lost to Max Holloway at UFC 300. But when these two fight, whether it be against each other or against other opposition, is nothing less than fireworks. Their first names rhyme and their fighting styles do as well. They are both violent as hell and great fighters. And with it being 1-1, both of them coming off a loss, I think this could be a great fight to make. There would be no belt involved. There'd be no number 1 contendership involved, maybe for Gaethje, but I still don't think it would be. This would just be an old-fashioned, let's settle the score. Who's going to go 2-1 up in this trilogy? And it's a fight I'd love to see. It's a fight I'd actually put my money on Dustin Poirier to win, especially after what we saw Max Holloway do to Justin Gaethje as well. And nonetheless, it's a fight I'd love to see. Let's settle the score, boys. Fight number 2. Fight number 2 is the person that Conor McGregor is meant to be fighting next, and that is Michael Chandler. These two seem to have a little bit of a weird beef with each other. They fought back in UFC 281 with Dustin Poirier getting the rear naked choke victory. But in that fight, Michael Chandler really rocked Poirier, and then Poirier really rocked Chandler. Then in the second round, Chandler took down and dominated Poirier. And then in the third round, it looked as though Chandler was going to do the same thing, but Poirier reversed it and then got the finish. After the fight, Dustin Poirier accused Michael Chandler of being a dirty fighter. You remember Michael Chandler's nose was bleeding everywhere, and apparently Dustin Poirier said he was rubbing it on him in his face, which was obviously blurring his vision. Since then, the two have had little jabs at each other back and forth on social media. Dustin Poirier does not like Michael Chandler. He's made no secret of that. He thinks he's a bit of a nerd and a bit of a suck-up. And Michael Chandler's never really said anything bad about Poirier, apart from the fact that he just says Poirier doesn't like him. But it's a fight that, again, I wouldn't mind seeing again. Obviously, Poirier is 1-up in this series, so he doesn't really have an incentive to fight him other than just to take a fight. But I think this fight could be massive if McGregor and Chandler happens and Chandler beats McGregor. I think if that happens, then Poirier looks at it and goes, yeah, I take that fight now. Because the shine that Michael Chandler will get from beating Conor McGregor, Poirier will be able to take some of that shine and potentially do something special with it again. So I don't know about you, but the second fight I wouldn't mind seeing Dustin Poirier fighting is against Michael Chandler. Fight number 3, mentioned him already. They fought 3 times. I say it's 1-1-1, even though Poirier is technically 2-1 up, and that is Conor McGregor. The first fight had a competitive edge with a little bit of trash talking. The second fight, friendly as anything. Third fight, way over the top from Conor McGregor. Said some horrible, nasty things and ended up with a horrible, nasty injury and hasn't fought since that day. But let's be honest, the score isn't really settled. And I know everyone will sit there and go, yeah, well, Poirier's beating the brakes off him in round 1. You know, he's going to batter him. He beat the brakes off McGregor in round 1. He did. Doesn't mean he was going to win the fight, though. We've all watched enough MMA to know that just because you win round 1 doesn't mean you win the fight. And again, I'm not even sitting there saying Conor would have come back and won the fight. But I'm also not saying that it was definitive that Poirier was going to win the fight. He won the first round before McGregor suffered a nasty injury. And McGregor came into the fight injured as well. Now, McGregor talks a lot, hence why there's not much sympathy for him. But if I'm going to be objective about this, I don't think the settle has been scored. Sorry, the settle has been. I don't think the score has been settled. And for that reason, and again, I give it the same caveat: if McGregor's able to return and beat Michael Chandler, McGregor versus Poirier 4 would be massive. The incentive's there for McGregor. He wants to get that one back. For me, the incentive's there for Poirier. He makes a lot of money and could potentially get something bigger off the back of a win over McGregor for the second/third time. For me, that would make all the sense in the world. Poirier knows he can beat McGregor. McGregor also knows he could beat Poirier as well. And case in point, in the first fight, McGregor won the first round. Yes, it was competitive, but he won the first round. In the third fight, he lost the first round. I need to see it again. And I think it would be a fantastic fight if McGregor comes back and he is anything close to what he was before his injuries. And fight number 4, the fight that I think most people want, the fight that I want to see the most, and a person he's not fought yet, even though he was scheduled to fight at UFC 230. And that is Stockton's own Nathan Diaz. As mentioned, these two are meant to fight at UFC 230. And Nate Diaz is coming off the back of a win against his good friend Jorge Masvidal in boxing. Nate Diaz versus Dustin Poirier at 170 pounds, meaning Dustin doesn't have to cut weight. Nate fights at 170 now. Is a huge fight. It's a huge fight. And let's be real, Nate has mentioned coming back to the UFC. For me, that's the fight to make if I'm Poirier. I think that's a very winnable fight for Poirier. I think it's a huge fight payday for Poirier. And I think that fight will determine whether Poirier still has it or not. Not just to him, but to the fans as well. He knows that Nate Diaz is going to push him cardio-wise. He's not going to be able to just go in there and one-punch KO Nate Diaz. No one does that. So he's going to have to put the work in. He's going to have to do the hard miles in the training camp. He's going to have to do the hard sparring rounds. But if he goes out there and he's able to beat Nate Diaz, in fact, I'll go a step further. If he's able to stop Nate Diaz, his legacy is here. It will go up a level. And off the back of that, he'll make a lot of money, bring more attention to himself, and could potentially get even more lucrative fights off the back of that if he wants to. So that's my 4 guys. I'll just recap it. Justin Gaethje, Michael Chandler, Conor McGregor, or Nate Diaz. Let me know in the comments, guys. Who would you like to see Dustin Poirier fight? Is it one of these 4? Is it another name? I'd love to hear your opinions. But people, before you go, make sure you smash that like button. Subscribe if you're new to the channel. Leave your comments. Thank you so much. My name is Callum, and this is the Sanderson Show. Take it easy.